في أكبر الكتب.
Congratulations, you have found the Lambcast, the official podcast of the large association of movie blogs, also known as the Lamb. The Lamb is the largest collective of online movie blogs and podcasts with 2,000 members and counting. Every week on the Lambcast, various members of the Lamb community get together to talk about our favorite subject, movies. So bookmark the Lamb and follow us on social media. Be sure to join us each week to hear a lively discussion of films and movie-related talk from our members. Join the flock at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lambcast. This is episode 798, and I'm your host, Richard Kirkham from Kirkham A Movie A Day. It's been almost 6 months since we charged up the Wayback Machine and looked at a previous decade, so it seems like a good time to plug back into the past for a look around. In 1983, the UK was hit with red rain, the weather phenomenon been dubbed blood rain, and it's caused by winds in the Sahara Desert causing sand to enter the atmosphere. In 1983, Karen Carpenter dies from complications caused by an eating disorder. In 1983, Michael Jackson's Thriller goes to #1 in the US and stays there for 37 weeks. And in 1983, Sally Ride becomes the first American woman to launch into space. Oh, and by the way, in 1983, there are a buckload of films released. It's been 42 years since those movies were released, and today's discussion will be a history lesson for some and a nostalgia trip for others. Let's meet the crew of this week's voyage into the past. Todd Liebenow of the Forgotten Filmcast was still a year away from his favorite movie year, so 1983 is just a warm-up for him.
Yes, but 83 still had Star Wars movies, so,
There you go.
That was important.
The Vern of Cinema Recall was a near toddler in 1983. Maybe he has some notes that he wrote down in crayon.
Richard, I want to tell you something, man. This world is like one big chicken ready to be plucked.
Okay, he's been into the product, hasn't he? Howard Casner of Pop Art remembers 1983 as if it was only yesterday. Of course, that could just be the sign of early dementia.
I'm sorry. Who are you? Why am I on this show?
And David Brook from Blueprint Review shares a birthday with my daughter, but he arrived a few years earlier. But I'll bet not early enough to remember going to the movies in 1983.
Oh, no, not quite. I was only two. Yeah. I think my earliest memory of the cinema is 89 or something like that.
So everyone was asked to bring a list of 5 movies to the talk, and they could choose whatever they wanted to for their criteria, what they were picking and listening to, or what listing. We don't have a pineapple kiosk. It's not a ranking rule. There's no draft going on here. We're just talking about movies from 1983 that we remembered and wanted to talk about. David, I'm going to give you the chance to go first. Tell us what it is, if you had a criteria for picking movies to add to your list, and then tell us what the first thing on your list is.
Right, yeah. Well, I this time round, I quite often my criteria is, right, I want to watch some of the films from my unwatched pile from my collection. I didn't go that way this time. In fact, I didn't actually get a chance to rewatch all of them, but when I had a look at what films came out in 1983, something stood out for me, at least when looking in my collection, is there are a lot of good martial arts movies out in 1983. So I've gone all out martial arts. I couldn't resist. So yeah, I'm going to start then with Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain. So yeah, this is a film by Sui Hark, and it was actually kind of made, although it's like a kind of a wuxia fantasy martial arts kind of movie. It was actually supposedly made to try and emulate the success of the Star Wars films by basically throwing loads of fantasy and special effects driven cinema and kind of bring that to the Hong Kong industry. But really it does play out more like a crazy martial arts film. I won't go into the plot because it's utter bonkers. But basically, it involves loads of crazy kind of mystical figures with magic powers fighting with loads of kind of 80s special effects flying around everywhere and lots of people flying around everywhere. And it's a whole lot of fun. It wasn't actually a big success in Hong Kong, but it's one that's kind of grown over the years to have a bit of a following. I think it did better in the West, so it's actually probably more fondly remembered uh, by Western martial arts movies fans. It's got I can never pronounce his name properly, but Yun Bao, who's always been one of my kind of favorite martial arts stars. He's incredibly acrobatic, and he gets to show his stuff here, even though the fights are a little less realistic here, and more about they really lean heavily on the fantasy aspects. You've also got Sammo Hung in a smaller role here as well, and Bridget Lin, Moon Lee. You've got some memorable stars from the Hong Kong scene. Yeah, and it's just a whole lot of fun, really. It's daft as hell, but it's a whole lot of fun.
When did you see it originally?
I actually came to this one a little later on. I think it's when I got sent a copy to review. It'd been on my kind of radar for a long time, but yeah, I think it's like 2020 that I saw it, so not that long ago. Um, but a little too long to remember many details now, I'm afraid.
Well, I don't want to suggest that they all run together, but when you're talking about martial arts movies coming from another part of the world and you don't speak the language, it would be easy for them to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
David,
is bit yeah.
I was going to one question, David. Where is the streaming at? Is this streaming anywhere?
It's not
Oh,
it's not streaming. I was just looking that up. There is a Blu-ray here in the US, but does not look like there's any streaming options at the moment.
and I'm
Gotcha.
the wrong
Okay.
person to ask about streaming anyway.
All right, fair enough. Okay.
I'm old school.
Yeah, he wants the physical media. There you go. So you're going to have to look for it on eBay or uh,
Yeah, in the UK they've got
Amazon or one of those places like that.
yeah, in the UK Eureka put out a fantastic Blu-ray of it. It's with loads of bells and whistles and special features and things. So that's why I saw it. It's thoroughly
All right.
recommended.
Well, thank you for starting us off that way. Howard, it's time for you to give us something special. Have you got a criteria that you use for your films this year?
I did my usual, my what I think are the best films of that year. Uh, the first one is The Fourth Man, which by Paul Verhoeven. This was when he was making films in the Netherlands before he came to the US and completely almost ruined any talent he had. Take that for a controversial look. But this is a psychological erotic thriller. It revolves around a writer who's bisexual, who encounters a mysterious woman, but becomes enamored of Herman, which is another of her male lovers, and they start having sex together. But but Gerard, the writer, is having a series of visions that suggest that Christine, the mysterious woman, may may be a murderer who has chosen him as her fourth victim.
Huh.
Yeah.
You know, I think we talked about this on a previous show, but I don't remember what the subject was. Maybe it was, one of those off the beaten path discussions that we had, but I remember you being quite enthusiastic about it. Good.
I think it's a good place to start if you want to get into the films he was making before Paul Verhoeven was making before he came to the US.
Gotcha.
Good one to start on.
There was an episode of Trailers from Hell, and it was on the movie Basic Instinct. And the host of that talked about Basic Instinct as being a remake of The Fourth Man, like an Americanized version of The Fourth Man is Basic Instinct. And I love Basic Instinct, so I'm very curious to watch The Fourth Man now.
Well, I wouldn't expect it. It has some of the same elements, but it doesn't remotely have the same plot.
Okay. I made that like quite a remake, but that same sort of like feeling or something like that, like a homage
Yeah, I
or
mean
something like there.
there's certain aspects of it that you can see that was influenced by the Fourth Man. Sure.
Sure. Excellent.
Well, Vern, what ambiguities have you been influenced by this week?
Okay, well, I honestly thought this was gonna be a draft, and so I was like, all right, I'm gonna pick the draft that everyone wants me to pick, like the public draft. Like these are the movies that are the best of 1983. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pick my own favorite movies of 1883. Now, I my first recollection of films doesn't happen until 1984 when I saw Ghostbusters, but my first pick of 1883 movies is yeah, I'm doing Videodrome. David
Sorry,
Cronenberg's
what?
Oh yeah, Videodrome.
Videodrome.
Oh, oh yeah.
David Cronenberg's body horror masterpiece with James Woods and Debbie Harry. He plays this sleazy TV producer trying to find the latest show that titillate his viewers, and he finds this one show called Videodrome, which just shows people getting tortured and abused. And when he sees the show, it affects his mind and body so much that it begins to change, featuring some great makeup effects. I don't think this is Rick Baker that did this, but I forgot his name now, who did the makeup effects for this. And I did write that down. People are gonna yell at me on the screen about who did the makeup effects of this, but makeup effects are great. Special effects are just incredible. Yeah, got a great score by Howard Shore in this one. It's crazy. The whole sequence where he starts making out with the TV, and the TV starts to pulsate and move. Yeah, just good stuff. I love it.
I love Videodrome. I got a chance to see it on the big screen here this last year at the Paramount. Once again, bragging about the programming during the summer at that theater, and all hail the new flesh.
And I gotta say too, like Debbie Harry was pretty big with Blondie at the time before this came out, or was she a hit after this movie came out?
No, she was
Because
she
No,
that
yeah.
Before, yeah.
she'd been around.
okay,
That was her thing.
yeah,
This was like a dipping into the movie business after being in the music business.
because I remember the trailers. They were like Debbie Harry of Blondie is in this,
Yeah.
so that was a huge deal. All right,
It is
yeah,
Rick Baker, by the way.
it is Rick Baker. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, thank you.
It almost made my top five list, but didn't quite.
And
That's fair.
that's because you had the Betamax version instead of the VHS version, and you couldn't quite get it into your chest.
That's it.
Todd, what have you got on your list?
Well,
And what's your list?
yeah, I don't really have a rhyme or reason this time. I just kind of went with five films I felt like talking about. Part of that is just because I had so much to choose from. I actually, as I started going through things, I was like, yeah, I want to talk about that one. I want to talk about that one. And the list just kept on building. So I have five that I've singled out, but I've got over a dozen backups here. So, but yeah, let's just go alphabetically and start with Woody Allen's film Zelig.
Oh,
Hey.
Yeah, I should say that that is number two on my list. So
Excellent. Well, I mean, we could talk about it now.
Yeah, let's go ahead
Whatever.
and do
right,
that, and Howard
that's
will
cool.
just remind us when we get to him.
Yeah,
This is a mockumentary, the year before Spinal Tap. So Spinal Tap did not invent the mockumentary genre. Um, but it's basically about a man named Leonard Zelig that is played by Woody Allen, who became a celebrity of sorts in the 1920s for being the human chameleon. Basically, whenever he was around certain types of people, he would somehow change his appearance to be like those people. So, like if he's around fat people, he become fat. If he's around Chinese people, he become Chinese. Things like that. This is kind of my sweet spot when it comes to Woody Allen. I love when he does these past eras. A lot of my favorite Woody Allen films are when he goes back to the 20s, 30s, 40s, that type of thing, like Radio Days, Sweet and Low Down. Those are some of the ones that Purple Rose of Cairo. I really love those ones. And this one is just not just a really witty, funny comedy, but one of the most technically complex films that I think that Woody Allen ever did when it comes to basically combining the old newsreel footage and then taking new footage and aging it up, making it look like it's old stuff and turning it into this kind of PBS style documentary. It's just seamless. I mean, you see the new stuff he shot, and it just you don't know the difference between it and the newsreel stuff. There's stories about like them stomping on the film and things like that to make it age and look like it's many decades old. Um, and I think it must have just been, tons of fun to just go through all this old newsreel footage and kind of pick out what was usable, to create this story. And it's very funny. I think it probably ranks up there pretty high in terms of the movies from Woody Allen that make me laugh the most. So, Howard, I'll let you take it. Yeah, but yeah, I love Zelig.
Well, it is a technical marvel. It is pretty seamless. But what I like about it is when you realize that what he's talking about is assimilation and how Jewish people have always had the great ability to just assimilate into whatever society they come into, to where you can't even tell often whether they're Jewish or not. And that's how they've survived. That's how Zelig survives. It's because he can become a seamless part of any place, even if this leads to him joining the Nazi Party, which is a kind of has a very funny scene with Adolf Hitler that is really uh, quite clever. So yes, this is one of my favorite Woody Allen films, one of his most technically accomplished. Um, so yes,
And
high
so great
marks.
too that Woody Allen was doing these techniques of having new actors appear with all these like old footage of past historic figures and whatnot way before Robert Zemeckis would use that technique in Forrest Gump. So I found
Mhm.
that to be
Yeah.
very kind of like fascinating. Just using like old school camera techniques because the computer techniques wasn't as big in '83 as it would be in '95 and going forward.
Yeah, I remember seeing this film and being quite impressed with it. And years later, I got a call from somebody who was doing marketing research the year before Forrest Gump came out, and they were asking questions about what I'd be interested in seeing, and they kind of described what the concept of Forrest Gump was like, and I said, "Oh, so it's sort of like Zelig," and they said, "Oh yeah, we've heard that reference a couple of times."
Yeah, very good movie. Good choice there,
Good
Howard and
deal.
David.
Yeah, yeah.
Howard and Todd,
Well,
sorry.
it is in a way odd. You mentioned that it's a mockumentary uh,
Final
before
Tap.
Spinal Tap, and also uses these techniques before Forrest Gump. It's not his first mockumentary. That would be Take the Money and Run,
Mhm.
but it doesn't get the credit it deserves for doing these things before other people did
That's
them.
because it's at the bottom of the alphabet.
Could be, could be.
Well, I'm going to start with an explanation for why I picked the films I did. I went through the list of 1983 films, and of course, I listed everything that I saw. So I had a list of about 55, 56 films, and I said I had to have seen it in 1983 for me to include it on my list because I want it to be that way. And I said, now how do I choose? And I'm usually looking for some kind of theme, if there's a plot line or if there is a director or a style or something like that that would bring them together. And I couldn't really find anything. And finally, I just went with sort of what Todd's doing. What do you feel like talking about? But I went nostalgia driven. I went with films that I have a personal memory of to go along with the movie as well. So I'm gonna some of these are going to be obvious choices right on the nose. You won't be getting any off the beaten path kind of choices here. All of them will be very familiar films. And I'm going to start with what I think is the best film of the year. And it was also, yeah, I've been deep diving into YouTube this last week, and I watched Siskel and Ebert, and they did their their top 10 films of the 1980s, and they had this at number two behind Raging
And
Bull.
I can I guess
You can take a guess.
the terms of endearment?
Nope,
Oh,
the right stuff.
oh
Ah,
yeah.
I left it off my list because I was confident Richard would talk about
Yes.
it.
Well, one of the reasons I'm talking about it is because it's my wife's favorite film, and she loved this movie. She grew up in the Mojave Desert when she was a little kid, and it was that era that was where all those things were happening. She didn't move to the Los Angeles County until she was, 8 or 9, something like that. And so she was there when all those things were going on in all the astronauts and the test pilots were operating out of the space center there. I hate the fact that I suddenly have gone blank on it. What's the name of the place? Todd, you've
The
got to know the
wait, which place?
Edwards Air Force Base.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sorry about it. I got there. Ah, and so we had that kind of connection. And I also remember talking about this movie before it came out, looking forward to seeing it. I remember seeing Ed Harris on the cover of either Time or Newsweek magazine, and it was actually talking about the political election that was coming up because John Glenn
Hmm.
was a candidate for the Democratic nomination for president, and there was talk that this movie might influence the election process, and I think that's one of the reasons that it didn't end up doing quite as well as it should have because I think people thought it was, a history lesson or a political movie, and they didn't realize how entertaining it would be. It is a terrifically entertaining film, and it's also very insightful. I had read the book the year before, so I was enthusiastic about seeing it, and I do remember that there was some, criticism that they, emphasized the astronauts over the test pilots a little bit, but I thought that they gave good attention to the test pilots and kind of showed how they laid the foundation for what was going on. And they also pointed out some of the hypocrisy of choosing astronauts, based on their academics rather than their accomplishments. But later on, those kinds of academics are really important, especially when they're trying to figure out some of the technical issues of the space program. Um, it's filled with fantastic actors. I love the performances here. I think the characterizations of some of them are great. LBJ having a fit in the limousine out in front of Annie Glenn's house because she wouldn't let him in. I, I know exactly that that's the kind of thing that LBJ would have done because he was a fiery, irritable person who would respond that way. And of course, being the vice president and the titular head of NASA, the idea that he was going to be denied access would just frustrate the hell out of him. I saw this at the Chinese theater the weekend it opened,
Oh,
Chinese
wow.
theater in
Yeah.
Hollywood, and I was disappointed that there weren't big crowds. It did a little business, but it was not the success that it should have been. And it's it's not my favorite film of the 80s. It's probably my second favorite film of the 80s. I love this movie, though, tremendously, and I'm always glad to talk about it. So I'll give somebody else a chance if they want to say
I,
something.
It,
I just
it,
want to say real quickly. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
oh no, go ahead, Vern.
Well, I am sad that I have never seen this movie before. I've seen Apollo 13 a bunch of times. I've seen like Armageddon a bunch of times, but I have never yet watched this, and I feel kind of ashamed that I haven't.
Oh, it's an amazing film.
Mm.
I just have such vivid memories of seeing this when I was a kid. I remember, well, I was a kid. I was 12 years old at the time this came out. But I remember the buildup. I remember the book was a big deal. I can remember seeing it sitting on people's, coffee tables and things like that. It was a huge book. And I was like, man, that's going to be a long movie. And it is a long movie. But I mean, this is just kind of what I think of in terms of like an epic film. And it's something that I think in my mind really kind of changed the way I looked at this part of American history and the achievement that this represents. I mean, like I said, I was 12 in 83. So there was never a time in my life where we hadn't been to space or we hadn't been to the moon. It just always had been that way. And so seeing this movie kind of helped me realize what an extraordinary thing that was. And yeah, Richard's right. You know, there's a lot of great performances in this. It always confuses me though, because the casting in this, you have cast members with the same names as some of the people that are being portrayed, but not, they don't match up. So like you have Sam Shepard playing Chuck Yeager, but I always in my brain want him to be playing Alan Shepard, but that's Scott Glenn. But of course, Scott Glenn's not playing John Glenn. Ed Harris is playing John Glenn. You know, so that always confuses me. But yeah. Oh, and a fantastic score.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say Bill Conti's score on this is terrific.
Yeah.
I'd say I only saw it for the first time a couple of years ago, but it blew me away. As you say, it's really long, but I was just hooked. Like, yeah, I watched it all in one go as well. Sometimes with longer films, you get tempted to split it in half or when you're watching at home. But no, I was there. It was yeah, fantastic choice.
And it's very entertaining, Vern. So it's not a history lesson. You'll enjoy the hell out of it.
Okay.
It almost made my top 5 list, but didn't quite.
Yeah.
I think the reason why it failed is because it's not a melodrama. It's not a thriller. That's why Apollo 13 was so, I think, so successful. This is very low key. It's like First Man with Ryan Gosling, which also didn't do well. It's just very low key. It's somewhere between an art film and an epic film.
So no one gets trapped anywhere. There's no disease happening, no outbreak of stuff, and no alien creatures. Are there terrorists? It's the 80s movies. All 80s movies have terrorists of some sort. Do terrorists come in?
No
try
ninjas.
To, like, stop the launch?
Sorry.
No ninjas?
No.
No ninjas, no asteroids.
There are some ninjas in my films. It's okay.
Okay, yeah.
Well, let's go back to David and talk about his ninjas. What have you got in your next film, David?
Okay, yeah, sorry. Segueing in there. Right, so yeah, my next film is one that I only just watched the first time 2 nights ago. I just thought, right, I want to watch something for this podcast rather than just cast back my memory. And that is a film called The Bastard Swordsman.
Oh, yes. I love that
have you
title.
seen this one?
Yes, no, but it's title.
Okay,
that sounds great.
But yeah, it's a Shaw Brothers film, and Shaw Brothers were they were losing the popularity by this point. Like Golden Harvest had taken over with the kind of Jackie Chan films and things like that. So Shaw Brothers was dying out a little bit, and they moved into TV eventually. But this is them firing on all cylinders. It starts off like quite a bog standard kind of martial arts story. So you've got this guy called Yun Fei Yang, played by Norman Shu, and he's the titular kind of bastard of the title, and he's a pupil at the Wudang martial arts school, but he's being bullied like all the other students use him for human target practice with their knives and stuff. But during this time, the Wudang master is challenged by a guy called Dugu Wudi and from the Invincible clan, who says that if the Wudang master loses this fight, he will close the Wudang school. And the Wudang master does lose, but Dugu gives him another chance. He says, I'll give you 2 more years, and if nobody from your school can defeat me, he will kill everybody in the school. So then you have 2 years 2 years to find someone good enough to defeat him. So it starts out and you think, oh yeah, I know where this is going. Yeah, the bastard's going to go and beat him and all this kind of jazz. But the film has an amazing kind of build to it. It keeps throwing loads of crazy twists in there. You get another character who comes into the fray, Fu Yushu, who's played by Tony Liu. He comes in. He looks to be on the side of Wudang, but you will realize actually no, he's up to no good, and he kind of becomes the bad guy. And it gets more complicated. But also, what really got me was not really the story. It was just kind of the action and of the film, of how that builds. Like, it starts out and yeah, it's pretty cool. It's got some good fights in there. But it just gets more and more crazy as the film goes on.
I was going to say, David, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm trying to reformulate my memory. Is this the spiderweb one?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. By the end, he uses this silkworm technique
Yes,
that
yes,
that
yes.
everyone keeps talking about, and which basically involves making a giant cocoon,
Yes.
which he uses to fight the bad guy. He like ends up hiding in it, and then he sucks the bad guy into it. They start fighting inside this cocoon, and it explodes, and it's absolutely crazy. It just becomes it's just absolutely bonkers by the end. So as I say, what starts out as a really conventional film where you think, yeah, I know where it's going, it's fun, but it just goes absolute batshit. And yeah, so if you want a film that kind of just drops the jaw, and throws in some soapy melodrama even later on, you start to realize that everybody's somebody's son or bastard daughter or whatever. It's like, what's going on? It's yeah, it's a hell of a lot of fun. So I was glad I got round to watching this for the podcast.
So I saw this one several years ago. My son and I went to a martial arts night at Alamo Draft House, and this was what was playing. And yeah, it's nuts.
That's cool. Well, Howard, what's your next best film in 1983?
Well, it's a film by Kon Ichikawa, who is a Japanese film director that did the great The Burmese Harp and Fires on the Plain. And this one is the Makioka sisters. It's basically a character study of four sisters in 1930, I think it's 38, Japan, as the war is approaching, but it doesn't play that much of a part really in their lives. They're a wealthy family. What's one of the things that's unusual about it is the sisters have all the money and therefore have all the power. It's not like Western civilization where even if the woman has all the money, then the husband has control of it. And there is even one scene where husband is begging her not to divorce him because he's really dependent on her uh, for his existence. It's a beautiful film. It's probably not for everyone because it's, as I said, more of a character study and a light comedy. But I think it's gorgeous. I really loved it.
I've not seen
Never.
it. I think I have heard of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've heard of it, and I love the Burmese hat, but I haven't got around to watching this one yet.
So there's another one off the beaten path. It made it into the top five for Howard. Why is that not a surprise? Vern, what have you got?
Well, my next pick is not really off the beaten path at all. I think I'm going to be talking about maybe the first Legacy sequel. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'm going to
I'm
be
sorry,
talking
what?
about the first Legacy sequel. I could be wrong. So let me know. I'm going to be talking about Psycho 2.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
The,
Checking another one off my alternates list.
There
Thank
you
you.
go.
This is an absolute fun. Written by Richard Franklin and Tom Holland. Tom Holland would later go on to do Child's Play and Fright Night. This is the story of Norman Bates. He gets out of mental institution after 22 years, goes back to live at the Bates Motel and the house, and he starts getting messages from Mother, and he's not quite sure if he's going crazy or not. What I love about this movie is that you really feel compassion for Norman Bates because in Hitchcock Psycho, it was sort of like a shock at the time that all these murders was being done by Norman Bates because at the time everyone just assumed that it was his mother going crazy, and you find out it's Norman Bates, and he gets locked up, and he gets let out, and Vera Miles reprises her role as Bain Crane's sister Lillian, and she's trying to get Norman Bates locked back up again. And Norman Bates meets up with this young girl played by Mage Tilly, and you know of all the bad things that happened before, so you fear for her, but also you do fear a little bit for Norman Bates as well, because here's this guy and he's trying really best to be as sane as he can be. And as of course the movie goes on, there's certain characters who take advantage of his illness for their own means and whatnot. And I found it to be very cool, very underrated. And they could have just done like a typical like remake and whatnot. And I'm glad they didn't do that. I'm glad that they were original with their exposition of these characters, and I absolutely love it. I don't want to spoil the ending, even though it's a old movie from now, but I thought the ending was great. And honestly, I think the series should have just stopped here.
Hmm.
Although Bates Motel is actually a good show, but that's a different thing.
Well, I remember Psycho 3 not being quite as good, but still worthy.
So yeah.
But I tell you, Psycho 2 was a revelation because you're thinking, "Oh, you're kidding me. It's 22 years later, 23 years later, and they're doing a sequel to Psycho. That makes no sense whatsoever." And then you get this film and you go, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I always say Psycho 2 is a way better movie than it has any right being. It's
100%. Yes.
I I can remember back in '83, my world was all about Return of the Jedi coming out then. And I remember staying up late one night to watch a preview on the local news that was going to be, talking about all the movies that were coming out in the summertime. And they mentioned Psycho 2. And this, I'm 12 years old. I had never heard of Psycho 1 at that point. So that was kind of the first time I'd heard about this world. And it took me a long time to actually get to Psycho 2, because when I saw the original Psycho, I was kind of like, the sequel can't be any good, but it totally is. I mean, Richard Franklin is part of the key there. I mean, Richard Franklin is a director that if you don't take notice of him, you should. He's got a lot of really effective films. I think I've mentioned Road Games in the past on another episode. So yeah, he's always worth a look.
That's what I got watching Brook Games next. I have not seen that one, so
Oh, it's
I
really
will be
good.
definitely looking for that one.
Yeah, this is a great pick, Vern. I think
Yeah.
everybody appreciates this movie a
And
lot more on this show than I think the rest of the world does, and that's too bad because they're missing something really cool.
I like the fact that it's a virtual expectations on things. Like it does have that scene where she goes into the shower and other things where it kind of sets up where something's going to happen
Yeah.
and it doesn't. And then there's other surprises that you were not expecting to happen at all, especially the whole things involved with certain earlier
Yep.
characters. Yeah. Oh, so great.
All right, Todd, you probably didn't see Psycho 2 in a theater when you were there
No,
in 1983, but did you find something else to talk about from 1983 for your
of
list?
course. Well, and this is not one I saw in the theater. I didn't come to watch it until not all that long ago, but I really enjoyed it. It's Never Cry Wolf, which this is directed by Carol Ballard, who's the director of The Black Stallion. He's a filmmaker that often does stuff that's dealing with wildlife, nature type themes. Charles Martin Smith plays a biologist sent to the Canadian Arctic to study wolves, and definitely or basically has to live with them in the harsh environment and such. It's a dramatic film, though it's kind of got a documentary vibe to it, kind of a nature documentary vibe. But it's really solid. It's got some tense moments and that, but it always stuck in my mind as, this was a Disney film. And of course, when this came out in 1983, I'm 12 years old. I'm at that point where it's like, well, I'm too old for Disney movies, type of a thing. But this film, I think it represents an interesting point in Disney's history, because this is where they were really not known for releasing quality stuff out of their live action department. They were releasing things like The Cat from Outer Space and The Unidentified Flying Oddball, things like that. And right at this point, they're kind of trying to make a transition to stuff that's got a bit older appeal to it. They're still a year away from launching Touchstone Pictures, which is where, they would really start to take off with that. But this is definitely a film that has a more mature feel, even though it kind of falls within some Disney traditions. They used to do the true life adventures, those nature documentaries and things like that. But this is something where it's kind of taking the spirit of that type of thing, but bringing it into a film that's kind of geared for an older audience. I mean, it's PG rated, but it's got full on male nudity in this
Yeah.
film. I think this one is really effective. And Charles Martin Smith, a guy that's usually known for strong, supporting roles, character actor, really effective in the lead in this one.
I saw this film the day after Thanksgiving in 1983. This is one of these. We had a tradition that we started, and it lasted until we had kids. My wife and I, we would take the day after Thanksgiving as an indulgent movie day because she had the day off. And I wasn't working, and we would go to as many movies as we could on that Friday.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we saw 4 or 5 movies that day, and this was one of them. And I remember enjoying it very much. I think I've seen it once since then. And I do remember Charles Martin Smith being very good in it. And I like him as an actor. I think this is probably the only movie that he had that I saw that where he was the lead actor in the
Mhm.
film. He's a terrific in so many other films, Starman and The
Untouchables.
Untouchables and American Graffiti, so it's easy to just think of him as a character actor, but I thought he was very good in this, and it's a beautiful film. Carol Ballard's probably the perfect director for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I feel out of place here. I've not heard of this movie at all. I feel like a bad film person now.
Well, don't worry, Vern. I'm sure that there'll be some bad film that you share with us in a few minutes that'll
Okay.
make us understand your isolation here.
Oh, I've never heard it before, so don't worry.
Okay, thanks, David.
All right. Well, my next nostalgia-driven moment is a film that probably everybody is sick of seeing if they've turned on TBS on Christmas Day because they play it all damn day long. It's A Christmas Story, and I'm picking it because there are a couple of interesting, like I said, personal moments about this. First of all, I saw it on a double feature. And those of you who are too young to remember or know, double features were standard operating procedure in the 70s and early 80s. I think they kind of disappeared as the multiplexes began taking over the theatrical business. And instead of seeing 2 movies, they just would run one movie and then they would have 3 other movies playing in your multiplex or 4, whatever, however many screens they had. But in those days, you had maybe one screen and you'd put 2 movies on it. And the movie I saw it with was Never Say Never Again.
Oh.
I can't believe they didn't pair this up with Black Christmas, Bob Clark's other Christmas movie.
That would be an interesting one to see later on, but like I said, it was a complete surprise. We didn't go to see A Christmas Story. We went to see Never Say Never Again, because I'm a big James Bond fan. And then this played, and it was completely charming. It was I gave me the nostalgia feels, and I didn't grow up in their era. Although there were things about it, wanting the Christmas present and
Mhm.
dreaming of having the one thing that you wanted and fussing with your parents about it. I had gone through that experience. They never got me that 357 that I wanted. Damn it. Probably a wise decision.
There was a time, Richard, that I got this movie confused with Silent Night, Deadly Night. And it was
Jeez.
no.
That'd be a little tough sharing with your family.
It was the scene where Santa Claus like puts that kid down the
Ho,
slide.
ho, ho. Yes.
I don't know why I always confuse that scene with like Silent Night, Deadly Night. Like I figured those Santa Claus are the same Santa Claus in that universe. So yeah.
It's a small world of Saint Nick, and they all, and I don't want to sound racist, but they all look alike. Uh,
This is a great pick, Richard. I mean, you're right. It's a movie that's easy for us to overlook just because of how it's on constant rotation on cable TV when we reach the holidays. But it is a wonderful movie. One of the things I really enjoy is uh, the intricacies of the script, especially the narration part that Gene Shepard does himself,
right.
based on his actual writing. It's just wonderful storytelling there. Um, for me, there's something very Midwestern about this movie. This takes place in, I think, Indiana. I remember if it's like
I think you're right.
Indianapolis or South Bend or somewhere like that, close to where I grew up. Okay, in the Chicago area. So just kind of the look and feel of the houses and the school and the town and all that very much reminds me of the environments that I grew up in. And if anyone out there is wondering uh, what I looked like as a child, I mean,
You are Ralphie.
Ralphie is a dead ringer for how I looked in like 1976, 77. So yeah.
And I'll just add one other touch of nostalgia on this. I like this movie so much that I took my parents to see it the next week
Yeah.
Nice.
because I knew that they would appreciate it because they did grow up in an era very similar to that, maybe a little bit earlier, but they would recognize all that Midwestern stuff, the snow, getting dressed to go to school, the way the teachers were. That was the world that they came from. And
Mhm.
Darren McGavin is terrific in this movie.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right, David. My guess is that there aren't a lot of Christmas movies on your list, so
Nope. Okay, so my next film is Duel to the Death. Um, so yeah, this one it tells the story of there's a Chinese sword fighting champion, Ching Wan, played by Damien Lau, and his Japanese equivalent Hashimoto, who's played by Norman Chu, and they face off uh, every decade. There's a special fight between a Chinese champion and a Japanese champion, and they're getting ready to face off for this official duel to fight for their nation's honor. Um, But during the run up to the duel, a band of ninjas, under orders from the shogunate, led by Master Han, they've been going around stealing secret martial arts scrolls and kidnapping Chinese fighters. And once the two heroes discover this, both the Chinese and the Japanese guy, they uncover like a plot to rig the duel that throws the whole affair into question, and it goes on from there. And Duel to Death, I've seen it a couple of times, and the thing that kind of stood out for me originally is like Bastard Swordsman, this gets pretty crazy. But mainly the ninjas. Like the ninjas get crazy. Like at one point there's a giant like mega ninja, a bit like the Power Rangers, where they kind of join together to create a huge ninja.
Nice.
They've got flying ninjas that are flying on these kind of weird board things. You've got an exploding kamikaze ninja, and you've got a stripping female ninja who kind of
Ooh.
distracts a monk by showing him her boobs. And you even at one point one of the ninjas' heads gets chopped off and stuck on a tree branch, but it still managed to say a few words to its kind of to one of the guys before it explodes for some reason. And it's absolutely mad. But watching it again a little more recently, there's actually behind the kind of madness, there's actually quite a decent kind of anti-violence message on there. It's actually quite done. Like,
Wow.
despite all the action things like that, you kind of the two heroes kind of come to realize that the duel we've been building up to, that even the title of the film is actually pointless, and winning or losing doesn't matter if you're dead. And it kind of has quite an interest. It's quite a well-made, interesting for kind of uh, film, really. But it keeps you it keeps you watching through all these absolute madness that's going on along around it. And it all culminates in an absolutely fantastic final duel, which takes place on this kind of cliff edge, and there's these crashing waves going everywhere, and it's so epic. And there's real feeling behind the kind of duel as well at the end. It's even though it, as I say, it's got this message of, well, why are we doing this? Just I absolutely adore this film. It looks great as well. As I say, on top of this final duel, it's also got some kind of makes good use of atmospheric lighting, some quite energetic camera movement and things like that. It's just a really good film that has a lot of bonkers elements that will kind of draw you in. But if you watch more closely, give it some more time, it's actually really good. So no, it's a yeah, I always want
David,
to recommend to people.
who releases the 4K Blu-ray of this?
Oh, I don't know about 4K, but there's a Eureka again. Eureka in the UK have released this on Blu-ray. I don't know about the US, and I imagine somebody's put it out there, but because it's got a bit of a following. This one, it's not a huge one, but it's quite well respected among fans.
well, I'll tell you what, if these martial arts movie producers are not supporting you in some way, shape, or form. I don't understand why, because you are
Yeah.
a wonderful advocate for these films. Your enthusiastic endorsement of them is just great, and
Well,
I'm
They,
I get paid
David,
in discs. I get sent a lot of discs to review.
it's
you
pretty
should
cool.
write a book about all these like cool martial arts movies.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. We collate
Oh,
some of our reviews together.
And you
yeah.
suggested a title that I have to see a movie for. You said Band of Ninjas. Is that if that's not the title of a movie, it should be, because that
Not that
sounds
I'm
like
aware
it'd be
of it. It
cool.
probably is, but actually, no, not one that I know.
Well, Howard, what have you got on your list next?
Well, my next one falls into the category of non-exploitation film, one of my favorite grindhouse genres, but this is still an art film. It's Dark Habits, which is the fourth film from Pedro Almodovar. It's one of his earliest films, but it's one of the films that helped put him on the map. It's about a cabaret singer who gives heroin to her lover who drops dead. So she hides out in a local convent, but the convent has like a lesbian mother superior, or one who writes secret erotica and gets it published and sneaks it out, and one is had killed somebody. Uh, it's wild. It is wild. It's a very poor taste, or it wouldn't be any good. It was very controversial. Apparently, Cannes rejected it because it was blasphemous. And it's really hard to think that in 1983 anything was still being rejected for being blasphemous and anti-Catholic. But it's a fun film. It's an early film, but it's a fun film.
Is this available on the Criterion Nunsploitation?
I think it might have been. I cannot remember.
It sounds like it would fit right there.
Yeah, it would be. I think, but I'll double check that.
I I'm quite hit and miss with Pedro Almodovar, but I did enjoy Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown recently, and that's one of the only kind of his earlier films that I've seen, and I'd really enjoyed that. I mean, is it got that same kind of energy, I guess, of that one?
Well, it's less technically well done. I mean, Women on
Okay.
the Verge of His Nervous Breakdown is probably his second best movie after Talk to Her. And
Hmm.
that was a really change for him because it is more mainstream
Yeah.
than his earlier films. I like all of his earlier films. It's the films after Woman on the Verge that I don't like until he gets to All About My Mother and Talk to Her.
Yeah, those I was
And
about to say all about my mother and talk to her. I adore them, but I was a little hit and miss with some of the others. Like Parallel Mothers, I wasn't a huge fan of that, and but I hadn't seen that
no,
many. I need to give some more of his early stuff a chance, really.
yeah, yeah, I totally agree that it was the time, and I think it was Carmen Mara was one of his muses who was in a large number of the film, including Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. She's the lead in that. So from Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown on, I'm hit and miss as well.
Yeah. Okay.
There are
Cool.
some good films there, but
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Well,
he seemed to have lost.
the way you
Go
described
ahead.
Dark Habits, it sounds like it should have been a film that Vern was putting on the list.
I should be. Yes. Yeah.
Well, Vern, what film do you have on your list next?
Well, my next pick, Richard, is a movie whose book I've read before I saw the movie, and that's something I rarely did at the time. I'm doing Christine, John Carpenter's adaptation of Stephen King's novel about a demon possessed car who influences a young kid. This one stars Keith Gordon and I want to say the other cast here John Stockwell, Alexander Paul. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I love John Carpenter's use of music as a way for the car to communicate things that are going on. I absolutely love it that way. I love the effects of this movie, especially the scene where the car reconstructs itself after being destroyed. Yeah, I found this one just to be an overall fun film. It's funny too because this is the film that John Carpenter made after The Thing was a box office failure, and he kind of took this project on because he needed to make money because The Thing was a failure, which is very odd now because The Thing is like one of his best movies ever made. But yeah, I still find The Thing or Christine to be a fun flick. And I guess yeah, John Carpenter was also going to direct a version of Firestarter, but then things happened. And
He got canned from that gig. Yeah.
Yeah, he got canned and made Christine instead. So, yeah, some things maybe a bit over the top and whatnot, but I love the score, John Carpenter and I think Alan Horowitz score that happens in all his films. Uh, but yeah, when that car plays like old 50s tunes to represent like her love of Arnie things, I just find that to be just so much joy. Or there's a one sequence too where Alexander Paul, like her and Keith Gordon's character are at a drive-in, and Arnie leaves to get food, and the car radio turns on and it plays that song. We were always meant to be together, and starts choking her. And I don't know why. I found it to be just a fun, trashy, little fun horror film, and one of my favorites of the year.
I wonder if you could put together a list of 5 films based on Stephen King movies, Stephen King books from 1983, because I know The Dead Zone was 1983 also.
And Cujo, right? Was Cujo also 83?
Cujo was, yep.
Yeah, there you go. So we got 3.
Yeah, I know.
There got to be 2 others out there that were inspired by one of the Stephen King books.
It's one of my favorite John Carpenter films, and next to Carrie could be my favorite adaptation of a Stephen King novel.
Yeah, I mean they did make some changes too, like from I guess in the book it's one of the owner's soul gets put into the car and that's basically evil. But I just like the fact that this car is just evil. Like it's got that great use of Badge of the Bone where the cars are all going through the track and they're all like plain colors. And then you got this red Plymouth Fury right there, like Bad the Bone. Like as much as I love Arnold Schwarzenegger's entrance in Terminator 2 using that song, I still think the fact that this car, Bad the Bone, this car is like a killer car. And I love this movie because it also did influences Radiohead's Karma Police video as well. So gotta love it for that.
Awesome.
Well, Todd, do you have a car in your movie next?
I do not have a car. No, this is another one that takes place back in the past, before cars were really much of a thing. But I'm actually going to go with another Disney one, kind of a transitional piece as they were trying to reestablish themselves when it came to live action. And this is one that I only just saw within the last few months. I'm going to recommend Something Wicked This Way Comes. Which is an adaptation of a Ray Bradbury story. This is Disney doing horror, and I think pretty effectively done. It's basically a classic kind of creepy carnival comes to a small town type of a tale, and you've got Jonathan Pryce playing the guy that runs this, a mysterious figure named Mr. Dark, and this just has such a wonderful creepy vibe to it. It's perfect Halloween viewing. It takes place in the fall. It's got that kind of feel, the leaves all around and all that, just has a Halloween vibe to it. And you add to it this creepy carnival coming to town. It's really great. It's a kid-centric horror tale. The 2 kids that are at the center of this are young actors that didn't really go on to do anything else, but I thought they were really, really good. Jason Robards is kind of the main star of it, playing one of their fathers. Solid performance from him. Pam Grier has a small part in this, which I did not realize when I sat down to watch it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's Pam Grier.
Nice.
But Jonathan Pryce just really pulls it off as this just creepy, mysterious figure that runs the carnival. This was one that was hard to see for many, many years. It's been out there on some discs, but there wasn't a streaming option, things like that. Finally, this October, they put it on Disney Plus, and so I was like, "Oh, I've got to see that because I've never gotten around to seeing it," and I really enjoyed it.
Well, I must have watched it about the same time you did because came I saw it just a little while ago, maybe 2 months ago,
Hmm.
and it was just one of those things I was scrolling around looking for something and said, "Oh, I haven't seen that in forever." Actually saw this at a preview screening at the studio
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
and filled out audience cards on the movie. And you've said it. Jonathan Pryce is the standout memory of this movie. He is the best character in the story. He is terrific. They did some clever stuff with him and the images of the boys, and I just remember him walking through the library, tearing the pages out of the book, and
Hmm.
oh man, that was good. And it doesn't quite work as well as it should because it is kind of kid centric, but it's a good moody piece, and I really like that. I like the
Yeah.
idea of a kind of a haunted carnival sort of story.
Well,
Vern, I think I
Todd,
cut you off. Sorry.
no, I was asking you, Todd, did you read the Ray Bradbury book that this
No,
was based on?
no, I haven't.
Okay,
Oh, I
I'm
have.
kind of curious if it was like very similar. I do remember this as a kid being freaked out by this. I was freaked out by this and Michael Jackson's Thriller video that came around the same time. So I have not seen this since I was a kid. So I'll have to go back and see if it still freaks me out or not.
This has been one I've been intrigued about watching it for a while, and I got really excited now you said it's on Disney Plus, and it doesn't seem to be on the UK Disney Plus. It's like, oh,
Uh,
great, damn it. But yeah, it's I love the poster. I think it's what's always caught my eye, and I have actually read the book. I think because I've read it, I've always been intrigued by it. But it's really hard to come by in the UK. I don't know why. Yeah,
I should have compared both versions now, David.
yeah. It's been a while since I've read it now, though. But yeah, I always remember
Okay.
enjoying it though.
All right. Well, my next movie is the stupidest reason for including a movie on my list because it was just a minor incident that went along with it, but I have a vivid memory of a bad pun that came along with seeing the movie. The movie is Krull, which is
oh,
Oh,
which
wow.
is not a great movie. It was kind of a disappointment, but
it's fun though.
we had looked forward to we'd looked forward to it. It was, a science fiction thing. It was one of those things. I read Starlog magazine, so I was always anticipating the films that they would talk about and write about in the magazine. And Krull was covered extensively in it, and so I looked forward to seeing it. And you know, it's what it is. It's perfectly fine. There's some of it that looks terrific. It's got a lot of good scenes in it, and the production design in it is solid. It's the story is just repetitive. We've got to go over here, we've got to go over there, we've got to go over here, we got to go over there, we got to go over here, we got to go. It's a series of obstacles, and it's clunky. A lot of those heroic stories have the same problem, but they overcome it better with a better script. This does not have that better script. Um, but the stupid nostalgic memory I have of it is I saw this at the Hastings Theater in Pasadena, California, which was a converted drive-in theater. They had a huge screen. They finally, I never went to it when it was a drive-in, but they turned it into a regular theater, but it was a huge theater. I mean, it was 3,000 seats or something like that. And it was not filled, by the way, for an opening weekend. Uh, but next door was a restaurant that we had to walk by from the parking lot. And the restaurant had one of those marquees out front, and they did the silly jokes that they would put on the marquee, some bad joke or reference. And I just remember walking by before the movie, as we're walking from the parking lot to the theater. On the marquee, it said, "Crawl on over for dessert after the movie."
Oh, that's great. I uh I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and say that Krull is a great cinematic achievement, but it is the kind of thing that is certainly fun when you're 12 years old in 1983. Um, it's just kind of a fun combination of the sci-fi stuff that had become heightened because of Star Wars, and then that sword and sorcery genre that we saw a lot of with cheapo Italian films in the
Yeah.
80s. This one has the most just impossibly. I mean, how does this weapon work? The glaive. I mean, there's no way you'd cut off your own hand trying to use this thing, but still, we love it. My other big memory about Krull is that this is one of my first memories of there being a video game tie-in, because
Yes.
there was an arcade game of Krull that I think was because they thought the movie was going to be a lot bigger than it ended up being. But yeah, there was a
I
there was a cabinet
remember
style arcade game that was Krull.
I remember playing the arcade game, Todd, because we had a Kroll arcade game next to a Tron
Oh
arcade
yeah.
game.
Yeah.
I totally remember playing both of those.
Nice.
And it was that image of that one creature that was displayed on the arcade game in the VHS that made me afraid to watch it in a way for like many years as like a kid. And I saw it recently because my friends can make jokes about that. Call in that listen Anthony says, and so I watched it, and it's fun. It's fun for a watch right there. Yeah, but like the acting kind of reminds me of like bad FMV video games acting style.
And the score is really very good, but basically James Horner just stole the score that he wrote for Star Trek II and repeated it for this particular movie.
Sure, what you gotta do? Find something that works, keep using it.
Yeah, why skip over it? All right, David, we're back to you.
Right. Okay. So my final two are two kind of better known martial arts movies, and my number two is Project A. So this is Jackie Chan vehicle. It was number three in the Hong Kong box office, so it was a big hit. And yeah, it sees Jackie Chan plays a member of the Hong Kong Coast Guard, and and they have a lot of trouble from pirates, and he ends up having to, but because of that, the Coast Guard get in trouble and they get demoted to get turned into police officers instead, and which is quite humiliating because there's a big rivalry between the police officers and the Coast Guard. But yeah, so eventually, what ends up happening in a kind of convoluted series of events is Jackie Chan ends up teaming up with a police captain played by Yuen Bao again. I can never pronounce his name. And they also come face to face with Sammo Hung, who's kind of a bit of a cheeky kind of thief or something like that. I can't quite remember what he is in the film, but yeah, they get involved with him occasionally, and they go off to try and stop the pirates. And yeah, this is just a whole heap of fun. It's one of my favorite Jackie Chan films. It just kind of just works so nicely. The comedy's there, and the action just gets better and better. And it's a lot of it is the stunts as well, not necessarily just fights. Like it's what Jackie Chan's good for. He just makes everything like exciting and fun, and like it just the simple things like there'll be a shot when he's just parking his bike, and he'll do that in a crazy, ridiculous kind of extravagant way. And speaking of bikes, it's got amazing set pieces, and one of my favorite set pieces there's an extended chase scene, and on that he gets on a bike, and there's like a bike chase which has some brilliantly choreographed kind of stunts and tricks and things like that going through these little alleys. And it's just a whole lot of fun. I rewatched it again just a couple of months ago with my kids as well, and it was like the first martial arts movie I'd shown them, and they loved it too. And I was
Great.
it made me very happy. So it's hard to make the list. It's just fun. It's one of the most entertaining films around. Really, it's
Well,
yeah, I love it.
I'm glad you brought this up, David, because the first Jackie Chan movie that I can think of was Police Story. Because I'm
Okay.
from the era who really thought Rumble in the Bronx was the first Jackie Chan thing
Mhm.
that like came out, because that was my introduction to Jackie Chan was Rumble in the Bronx, and I realized
Yeah,
he
yeah.
made his early films. But I don't think I knew about this one. I'm hoping that Criterion does like a new release of Project A.
I think that's in their Jackie Chan set. I think I might be wrong, but they do have like a Jackie Chan box set out.
Okay.
I think so. I might be wrong.
Once again, selling the shiny discs.
Mhm.
Well,
And
Howard,
again,
we
it. Oh,
we already talked about your number two, so we're going to skip over your spot right here, and we're going to
Sounds
go
good.
right to Vern and talk about whatever he's got in his number two spot.
All right. Well, my number two spot, I can put these movies in any type of order whatsoever here. I'm going to be talking about Flashdance. That's right.
What a
The story
feeling!
of
What a feeling.
that's the sort of steel town girl on Saturday night looking for the fight of her life. Now, my introduction to this movie is not so much the movie itself, but my dad had a collection of music videos from MTV, and then a little video came on that showed a young girl with leotards doing some dance routines to the song Maniac, and I just like fell in love right away with Jennifer Beals. I'm like, I had no idea it was a bunch of different body doubles. I was like, I like music very much, and I
Vern
like
likes
movies
off the
very
shoulder
much.
sweaters.
Yes. Yeah. So my introduction to this movie was that video of Maniac from Michael Cimbolo. And then years later, I saw the movie, and the movie is essentially like a bunch of like different music videos put together involving this plot about this girl who's a steel worker, wants to become like a dancer, and she gets a job at this great restaurant bar that has it's not a strip club. It's what you would call I forget the names of those places where it's not like because they don't actually show like nudity, it just has dancers there and they don't really get naked. And there's a restaurant where this one guy wants to become a comedian, but he's not a very good comedian. It's got Lee Fiennes in this movie, and a whole bunch of other actors. Michael Nori's in this film. Wasn't he like the American Ninja? I think he was. Could be wrong. Um, yeah, Cynthia Rhodes. Yeah, essentially it's just like the songs, and there's this great sequence where Jennifer Beals does this sort of like kabuki type theater with like flashing lights going on there. It's a very visually arrested movie. The plot line is not really that great because she wants to get a job as a dancer, and her manager gets the hots for her, and he wants to help her out, but then she gets upset that he's helping her out, but then decides, fine, you can help me out. Uh, yeah, it's just more if I watch it just for some of the iconic moments of the film. Of course, her pouring the water on herself when she's dancing. It's got a great introduction to like break dancing at the time, where her and her friend are traveling the streets and they see break dancers, and she takes all these elements of like hip hop and ballet and puts it to the end song. What a Feeling from Irene Carey won like best song at the Oscars that year. So yeah, it's just overall a fun watch. And yes, I watched them because of that nostalgia feeling. Me as a kid watching MTV with my dad's tape and watching the fits of one thing after another, and then that sequence where it shows her foot twitches right there. I'm like, all right, well that's where my feet thing comes in, and then seeing the legs and the leotards of her just, like dancing. Yeah, just, oh yeah, love it.
It's a fun film, but I have a friend who said that his only problem with the film is he never understood why someone who was at a place that was doing the most innovative and exciting and brilliant dancing in years wants to go and become part of a stuffy, old, boring ballet troupe.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Well,
Yeah.
I remember when this movie came out and reading several think pieces about it that basically said this is the end of civilization coming.
Yeah,
You know, they
yeah.
were talking about how this is all flash images, it's all
Yes.
music videos, it's
Yes.
all quick cuts. It's basically we're we've reached the end of human existence because we're going to be entertained by something like this. And I thought that was a really big overreaction, but there were people who were just adamant that this was going to destroy the world.
I,
There are
I was
people who might agree that it has, but I don't think that it has. I think I'm with you. It's entertaining. It's not a very good story. And apparently it's a great way to learn how to dance because those guys in Full Monty, they got so good after watching Flashdance.
yeah, and it's funny too because like I've seen a bunch of like music videos or music songs from this movie play on MTV that you would think that this would be an MTV production of some ways, but it's not. I know that Joe Estahaz, who helped write this film, would go on to make another movie about strippers and whatnot with showgirls later on. So hooray for that!
Todd,
It was just rated showgirls. Sorry, never mind. Sorry.
Todd, what kind of feeling do you have,
So, good day, eh? Welcome to the Lambcast. So we're going to we got some back bacon here and a 2-4, and we're gonna put on our thinking toques and talk about movies, specifically Strange Brew.
I knew that was
Nice.
coming.
Yes.
um,
This almost made my list. This almost made my list, but I didn't pick this one because I knew you'd be talking about this one, Todd.
I mean, when it comes to the silly comedies of the 80s, this is top tier for me. I actually just last night saw a clip that had Dave Foley from The Kids in the Hall talking about Strange Brew, and he described this as being a really smart, stupid comedy. And I thought that's very accurate. I like that description. It's the only film to star SCTV's Bob and Doug McKenzie, of course, played by Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas. They also direct this movie. And I mean, I've just always been intrigued with these characters to start with. I love the whole genesis of these characters. I mean, if you don't know, basically SCTV was produced in Canada and they were on the CBC there, and then this mandate came down. They were trying to push all their shows to include a certain amount of quote unquote Canadian content on the shows. And Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas thought this is the stupidest thing we've ever heard of. I mean, we're Canadians making this show in Canada. What are you wanting us to do with this? And so they made these two characters that just would go on for they were like 2 minute long segments, and they would just improvise this stuff on SCTV talking about Canadian stuff. And everybody fell in love with these characters, and they ended up having an album and then eventually a movie. And when they make the movie, it's basically a riff on Hamlet, which just
Yep.
blows me away every time I think about that. Um, and they kind of they nod to that by setting it at the Elsinore Brewery. But you know, eh, I mean, they got Max von Sydow to play the bad guy. I mean, it's just got so much fun stuff going on. It's yes, it's a scripted movie, but there's still a lot of it that has that kind of improvisational feel that the original Bob and Doug skits had. It's just a celebration of all the quirky things that we love about Canada. And, these two characters are always going to have a special place in my heart. And I got to say, one of the best movie posters of the 80s, in my opinion. Strange Brew, for being this stupid comedy about a couple of hosers, it has this wonderfully intricate poster that is just epic. So,
Oh, I have a VHS version of this, but it does not have the original poster. It was like this mock-up version, and I had no idea. Well, I knew vaguely of the SCTV characters they played, but I never really watched much of their skits at the time. But I do heavily enjoy Strange Brew. It's one that I do watch every couple of years. It's a fun one.
When Lambcast was doing Hamnet, and I couldn't make it because I wasn't able to see the film, the exit question was, "What's your favorite Shakespeare adaptation?" And I was going to have Strange Brew as one of my runner-ups.
excellent.
Nice, nice.
Well, Strange Brew, I knew was coming because Todd, you've talked about this before on the show, and
I
that's perfect.
probably have. Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. And it's the Great White North. We're all welcome there, and it's an entertaining film. I think I saw it once in the theater and once later on. Uh, and I'm a fan of Max von Sydow, so I love the fact that he shows up in this movie. That's great. All right. Well, my next nostalgia piece is the biggest film of the year. It's the one that Todd has hinted at. Of course, it's a Star Wars film. It's Return of the Jedi.
Hey, all right.
And I talk about this movie because there I have stories, about seeing the movie, and I love sharing the stories. The first story is that I went to see this at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood on opening night. It was supposed to, start at midnight, Thursday midnight. And in those days, you didn't buy advance tickets. You got in line to buy tickets. And there was a long line to buy tickets. And you sat in the line. This is, line stories from the old days. I sat in that line for 20 hours,
Oh, gee.
Wow.
sitting on the street behind Hollywood Boulevard. Howard, you lived in Hollywood. What's that street south of Hollywood Boulevard?
Oh, well, there's Santa Monica, which is where
No,
the
no, it's not that far south. It's like the next street down. And it's, by
fountain,
the way, it's a bad neighborhood. But
fountain,
it wasn't Fountain, but it's like Fountain. It's up from,
Selma.
that sounds like it might be it. That
Yeah,
might be it.
Selma. It
And
it yeah.
so we sat behind the Egyptian actually had a parking lot at one point. It doesn't have it anymore. But we sat behind there, behind hundreds of other people to buy tickets when they went on sale, probably at about 9 o'clock at night. So we got there at about 12 noon, maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon. My best friend and I and our wives were going to meet us there. So we got in line, we sat down, we, played cards, we talked with other people in line. We had a lot of conversations. You're sitting on the sidewalk and it just kind of feels grimy, and it's getting close to when the tickets are being sold after everybody showed up. And somebody in front of us practically started a riot because they bought tickets for their whole sorority fraternity
Oh, gee.
that showed up, and we got bumped from the midnight screening because of that.
Mm.
So we stayed there and we went to the 3 a.m. screening.
Oh,
There's a
Richard. The
wow.
force is with you, my
They
friend.
were gonna do it
Yeah,
24
see.
hours. So we went to the 3 a.m. screening because we didn't want to wait. We had to see the movie. We loved the movie, enjoyed the hell out of it. It was so much fun. We'll talk about the movie more in just a second. Uh, our friends left. They were going to go home and go to bed. I'm sorry, we walked out and there was no line, so we walked around and bought tickets and went to the 6 a.m. show.
Damn.
Yes.
My wife and I did that and had such a great time because there wasn't a line. I said, I'm not going to miss the chance to see this again so quickly when there's no line in front of the Egyptian Theater at 6 a.m. So we just did that automatically. And then we were
Oh.
meeting our friends later that day and we went and saw it again on the first day
Oh.
at a 1 p.m. show because I couldn't get to sleep. So we had a great time seeing the movie 3 times on the first day. Got bumped from the first screening, but I saw it at the Egyptian Theater twice, at 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. and had a great time. So that's the story I've got to tell about Return of the Jedi, except there's one more little element of it. In those days, movies would play in theaters for months, and The
Mhm.
Return of the Jedi stayed in theaters in Los Angeles County all the way until December. And the last night it was playing in December, we drove all the way out from where we lived in Alhambra out to West Covina to go to the last screening in LA County of Return of the Jedi in LA County. So we were committed to the movie at that point.
Well,
That's my nostalgia reason for talking about the film. Now let's talk about the movie. You guys got things to say?
Well, I do remember my parents showing me this movie first. I do try to remember watching this because of the Ewoks. And I was a young kid at the
Mhm.
time because I know I was too young to have seen both the original and even Empire Strikes Back. And I think my parents rented this movie because they seen the other two and they want to watch this one because they missed it. And yeah, I was just very much enchanted by those little furry bears and whatnot. So I enjoyed for that and didn't know really anything about the significance about, well, why are we feeling bad about this bad guy who's dying in this? I did not get that at the time because I've not seen the other two, but I think I know a lot of people like look kind of down on this one a little bit, but I do enjoy Return of the Jedi very much. That's that speed bike chase sequence, that speed biker,
it's incredible.
that
I
is
love it.
so cool to watch. That even today, that is probably my favorite sequence of all the movies. Is that speed bike chase sequence?
I think my favorite sequence in Return of the Jedi is Princess Leia helping them escape from the sail barge.
Oh yeah.
Oh, of
I,
course.
I was just going to say, I mean, I had a similar experience too. I mean, it was the first Star Wars film I watched as well, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, so it's a very special place in my heart. I think it's yeah, because I watched it very young. I mean, I was too young to watch it at the cinema, but I can remember watching it on video. I think taped off TV, and me and my brother used to just watch it again and again and again. I think for me, it's easy to pick it apart because it basically kind of rehashes a lot of stuff from the first film, but I mean, maybe this helps that I saw it first, but I didn't care. And the set pieces are so good. The lightsaber duel at the end and everything. It's flying right into the Death Star and all this kind of stuff. It's just this. It's so much fun, that film. Even if it's a bit recycled, it's just so much fun to watch that you just don't care. So no, I'm with you on this one.
I'll shout out a little love for the first part of the film. The whole Jabba's palace stuff
Yeah.
was always some of my favorite bits. I just love Lucas finally getting the chance to go wild when it came to the creatures and stuff. Because, you know, you always hear the stories about how he was a bit frustrated with the cantina sequence. We all loved the cantina sequence in the first film, but he never felt like it was what he really wanted. But with Jabba's palace, they just went nuts with creature designs and puppets and things like that. So that, of course, I loved.
They want a Wange.
Although the only thing I will add is that the kind of the what's it called, the kind of special edition, like fanning around with edition, as I want to call it, that does spoil this film a bit. I always get so annoyed that they get rid of that. I used to love that cheesy Ewok song at the end.
Yo.
Yeah, and then
that's the different one. Yeah,
and that kind of musical number they've added in with all the CGI is like, no.
Bring back the yum yum cut. I want the yum yums.
Yeah, absolutely.
David, we're back to you for your last film.
Right. Well, my last one, I rewatched it for the show, but I had seen it before, and now I'm going back to the Shaw Brothers. I've got to disclose something though. I made a bit of a boo boo when I was picked this but I wanted to keep it on my list anyways. On my DVD database, it's got 1983, and to be fair, I looked at the Blu-ray, it says 1983. But everywhere else I've looked, I've realized everywhere else seems to say 1984, but I kept it on the list because it was too late. And I looked it up online. I think it was kind of finished in 1983, and it may have screened somewhere at 1983, but the actual like Hong Kong premiere was 84 in like January or February or something. But I'm going to keep it on the list anyway, so let's just be quiet about those details. But yeah, the film is 8 Diagram Pole Fighter.
Called it. I knew that's what it was going to be.
It's as I say, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the Shaw Brothers were kind of slowing down a little bit at this point, but this feels like a kind of last hurrah because it's very old school in approach. I mean, the story's pretty straightforward. It's basically at the start of the film, you get this epic battle where the Yang family, or at least the men from the Yang family, have been ambushed, and most of them have killed, but there's two manage to escape. One of them loses his marbles, and he's played by Alexander Fusheng, who sadly he actually died during production before it was finished. So they actually had to reshape the film to make that work, and instead they made Gordon Liu into the main character. I don't think he was originally going to be the main character, but yeah. So the other guy who survives is Gordon Liu, and he kind of goes off into hiding, and he stays with some monks where he learns the 8 diagram pole technique basically. So it's very old school, very Shaw Brothers. It's full of blood and lots of fighting. It takes itself very seriously, whereas I've a lot of the ones I've mentioned earlier have a bit more comedy, but this takes itself very seriously, but it just nails it. It's told with real conviction, the story, and high drama. As I say, it's a basic kind of story, but it works because it's got that drama. Even if it's well overbaked, it delivers. It's also got some awesome training sequences, which are always fun in the Shaw Brothers movies. In this one, it involves these kind of wooden wolves that they have to kind of knock the teeth out of the wolves using the sticks and all this kind of stuff. and it's just I don't know, it just fires on all cylinders. There's loads of action. The action has a nice build. It just gets better and better. The climax is fantastic. And yeah, it's hard to fault, and I think it's possibly I think it probably is my favorite of the Shaw Brothers films. Um, and they made a lot of martial arts movies. So yeah, I adore this movie.
I've got to
Yeah,
save this
yeah.
list of movies that you talk about so the next time I go down to Waterloo in Austin, I can
Mhm.
dig around and look for them.
Yeah.
It's a good one. I wholeheartedly endorse everything David just said.
Awesome.
Howard, what was the best film of 1983 from your perspective?
Well, this one is a real arty one. It's the last film written and directed by Robert Bresson, the French filmmaker. It's called L'Argent, or Money. It's it's pure Bresson, and if you don't like Bresson's style, you're definitely not going to like this film. But it's basically about a man who is past um, a counterfeit franc note, and he then gets arrested for using it himself. He's put in prison. He then comes out. It all leads to tragedy. It's based on a novel by Leo Tolstoy. I did not like his penultimate film, which was The Devil Probably, but I thought this was a great send-off, as good as his earlier and first films, like A Man Escaped and Diary of a Country Priest and Pickpocket.
Has anybody else seen this? Because I
I,
have not.
I
Yeah,
have not even heard of this.
I've actually reviewed this from our website. So yeah, if head over Blueprint Review, you can see my thoughts on the film. It was a couple of years ago. Um, but yeah, it's it, it's excellent. I liked it a lot too. Bresson's always a director he's kind of hard to really fall in love with because he's got quite a kind of a cold kind of style to it. Um, but yeah, this was quite impressive. I do like the concept. I do like what he did with it. So no, yeah, it's a good choice.
Good deal. All right, Howard, you got your top film in, and it should have won all the awards and didn't, damn it.
Well, no, we'll actually talk about that with the exit question.
All right. Vern, what's your last movie?
Well, to quote a character from another movie that won movie of the month, look at my shit. Look at my shit. I've got Scarface on repeat, y'all. On repeat. That's right. I'm doing Scarface. Brian De Palma's feature with Al Pacino, Michelle Pfeiffer, Robert LaJoya, Stephen Bauer, the rise and fall of Tony Montana. Yeah, just like Flashdance. Also featuring a story from Giorgio Moroder. I didn't think about that at the time, but uh, yeah, there's not much to say about the plot of it. Al Pacino is great in this movie. Is it culturally sensitive? No, but I still think that Al Pacino just does a great job. Over the top persona of this character, Tony Montana, and Rise and Fall. I got some great cinematography in this. It's access to the degree. Brian De Palma, is funny that he made Blowout, which is an amazing movie, also a failure, pretty much like John Carpenter had a failure with The Thing. Um, Brian De Palma makes another amazing movie with Blowout. That movie is a financial dud, and then he gets hired to direct this remake of an old 1930s gangster movie. Oliver Stone is the screenwriter of this, and they put in some, I guess, real things that were going on in the U.S. about how Fidel Castro kicked out a bunch of citizens and brings them over here. And I think they're exaggerating on like there's like any criminal aspects of them over there. I think it's exaggerated for the film, but I absolutely love this movie. it's a long one, but it just never feels long for me when watching it. It's like I can watch this and like Magnolia because both are over 3 hours long, but they never feel to be that long for me. And it's just fun movie. I know I was saw this movie probably in the late '90s because I remember Universal was coming out with like their widescreen editions of movies on VHS, so I was able to watch that for this. Yeah, that's all I really got to say. Scarface, it's a fun movie. I had another movies gonna put in this place too, but I'm gonna stick with Scarface. Yeah.
I like the first half. I'm sorry. I was going to say I like the first half very much, but then in the second half, I think De Palma just completely loses control of the narrative and the tone, and he's trying to do something operatic, a tragic opera, but ends up with a comic opera. I'm still more attracted to the original with Paul Muni,
Oh, the
but
original's
the first half I
fantastic. Yeah.
really like.
I saw that
Howard,
recently. The original, it's amazing.
are you talking about? Is it after the whole like push it to the limit? Is that where it falls off for you? The whole montage?
I can't remember exactly where it starts losing me, but it is the second half. It's like it's divided into two parts, and the second half just sort of gets out of control.
So you're all
Well,
good on the
because
rise, but not so great on the fall.
Yeah.
yeah, I like the fall as much as I do the rise. The fall is just as fun for me as like the rise of it is. Yeah, just the way that it he falls apart and you can almost see the film kind of falling apart too. Yeah, I don't know. I this for me because I after this movie he made Body Double. If you want to find more about my thoughts about Scarface, go check out the episode I did with Isabel Turan for the show That's Bodacious Bro over on Rabbit Hole Podcast because we do talk about more about Scarface there.
Yeah, Scarface was over the top in a lot of ways, and it was entertaining, and it was right in the middle of. I was a huge De Palma fan. I was like, there was something hypnotic about his films for like a 15-year period. I could watch every one of them over and over and again. And even though I don't think this is his best film, it's definitely very watchable. And I know they had to fight the X rating substantially. And I know exactly what scene it was that was going to get them that X rating. That's
Yeah.
the chainsaw in the bathroom. Holy
Yeah,
criminy.
you're talking about the 1930s version. So on the Blu-ray that I have, there is a special feature where you can watch the movie and it will show interviews from like the actors and writers and directors, and then it will show a scene from the 1930s version, and then it matches what's going on in the '83 version. It's kind of fun to see both of those themes like play out
Cool.
and how similar stories of the Paul Mooney movie match with like Al Pacino playing those two characters.
Well, I know that Howard saw the original Scarface in theaters when it first came out. Sorry, Howard,
That's
just taking
right.
a shot.
I was a personal friend of Boris Karloff. We were bowling together.
No. So, but it's it's a terrific film. Also, it's the Shame of a
Yeah,
Nation. They had to kind of clean it up a little bit for the Hays
of
Code at
course.
that time, but
Yeah,
this one they don't bother cleaning up at all. It's just nasty.
Scarface. It's a vibe movie. I mean, I
Yeah.
will say that it's just a total like vibe with like the music score and
I,
everything,
yeah.
Miami and whatnot. There, yeah, I love it.
The thing that most irritates me is how it became kind of an iconic thing for the thug lifestyle, and I'm not really a fan of that at all. I think people who do that have missed the message of the movie, but
Yeah.
they've probably got their faces buried in some other substance. So, Todd, what's your last film?
Well, let's go about as far away from Scarface as possible here. My last film is going to be Tender Mercies,
Oh,
which
okay.
is one that this is another one that I've only watched for the first time just within the last couple months. I actually had done an episode of my podcast with Dave Anderson where we talked about the movie The Outfit with Robert Duvall, and I was thinking, there are some holes in my Robert Duvall watching, and I might as well start with Tender Mercies. which is the movie he won the Oscar for. And this is just such a sweet and lovely film. Um, and that's not to say that it doesn't deal with some dark things. I mean, the characters in this movie have more than their fair share of struggles and tragedies and such, but it's all dealt with in just a very honest, heartfelt way. The themes of the film, they deal with, where we get strength. We get strength from love and family and faith and music and things like that. And just this film just won me over. I sat down with it on a Sunday night and just kind of melted into this movie. And Robert Duvall, I think his Oscar completely well deserved for this. It is such a genuine performance, and just such a quietly uplifting film. It just completely won me over.
This is a fantastic film. I've only seen once when it came out. I wish I had gone. I wish I have no excuse for not having revisited it because I loved it when it came out. And you're right about Robert Duvall. This is the one he won the Academy Award for, and it's all of the films that he's done that he's been nominated for. This is probably the one that he deserved it for the most. So
Yeah.
I
it's a
will
terrific
disagree with
movie.
that, but I think it is probably deserved it most for The Apostle. But this is a lovely, touching film, and a shout out to Orton Foote, who wrote the screenplay
Yeah.
and is one of our best, or was one of our best playwrights.
All right. Have either of you other guys seen this movie?
I
I
haven't.
have not. No.
I do have the Blu-ray, but it's sat on the shelf. I haven't unwrapped it yet. I'll have
All
to
right. Well, coming
remedy
off the
that.
shelf soon, then I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
All right. Well, my last film that we're going to finish off with something light and entertaining. I will freely admit this is the film on my list, and as a matter of fact, the film on any of these lists that I've seen the most from 1983. And it's I like I said, I'm nostalgia fueled here. My wife's two favorite films both came out in 1983: The Right Stuff
Oh,
and this film,
I
Valley
know.
Girl.
Yeah, I was like, I know it. It's Valley Girl.
Which I've like I said, I've seen literally 100 times. It's just ridiculous how often I've seen this movie. There was a point in time when it was not available on DVD yet, and I bought a used Laserdisc copy of it for $70 because I wanted my wife to have it. And it was, a year later the DVD finally came out, but it was one of those movies that for some reason it just really resonated with her. And the memory that I have of seeing it, I'm not sure if it's the first time we saw the movie, but I know this event did happen. We went to see the movie at a uh, mall theater, one of those multiplexes, small multiplexes. They probably had four screens, and it was a double feature also. And the double feature it was playing with was Still Smokin', the Cheech and Chong
Oh, yeah.
sequel to Up in Smoke, which is not nearly as good as Up in Smoke, which is not a good film, but it's very entertaining.
Yeah.
So we saw Valley Girl because my wife wanted to see it, and we sat through Still Smoking because heck, I'd paid to see movies, and I'm not going to walk out of a double feature not seeing the second feature. And after seeing the second feature, my wife says we're going to stay, and then we watch Valley Girl again.
Mm.
Mhm.
Just because she loved it so much. And it's a terrific little comedy. It's got Romeo and Juliet vibes all over it. And I every time I hear Modern English, I melt for you. I get a tear in my eye thinking about it because it was such a sweet film. And it was Nicolas Cage's breakthrough movie. Deborah Foreman should have been a more successful performer after
Absolutely.
this. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what exactly happened with her, but she was very sweet in this movie. And
She's kind of the great forgotten teen, 80s
yeah,
teen actress, Yeah, she should have been bigger.
Yes. I only know about Deborah Foreman because of the movie April Fool's Day. That was my only introduction to her. So it was a kind of a treat seeing her in this because I haven't seen her play any other characters except for that twisted character she played in that. So it was kind of sweet to see her play a normal character somewhat.
I think the last thing I remember seeing her in when she was still doing these kinds of movies was the she's the girl who shows up as William Atherton's romance
Yes, in
crush
Real
in
Genius,
Real Genius. I'm going, that was
which
weird.
which is the same director, Martha Coolidge. And I was going to
Yeah.
say, Martha Coolidge, underrated director. She had some solid stuff. Valley Girl, certainly Real Genius. She did a film that we talked about on my podcast called Plain Clothes, which is very much a forgotten film, but I enjoyed. She's got her missteps. I mean, I'm not going to be the one out here, saying Joy of Sex is anything great, but when Martha Coolidge is on her game, she does a solid job.
Yeah, this is a good film. Like I said, full of nostalgia feels for me, and that's why I included it on my list. Well, that's our list, folk. That's 1983. I hope you've enjoyed the history lesson and didn't mind too much the nostalgia trail that we took. We're going to take a quick break here to hear from a fellow Lamb Podcasting Network show, and then we'll be back with our exit question of the week.
At Cinema Recall, we want to present to you the finest in film analysis.
Yeah, like action and gore and sex.
We will look at classics by Kubrick, Lynch, Godard, De Palma, and Coppola.
I don't know who the that is, but I'm looking at classic bodies of Christina Hendricks, Keanu Reeves, Salma Hayek, Ryan Reynolds.
We are a serious show for film lovers who enjoy indie foreign films, art house gems, and classic black and white features.
Well, I enjoy big budget blockbusters with great action and sexy people. Maybe our podcast can celebrate all aspects of films, like people who feel like your weird way and like people who feel like my weird way can get together, man.
They can?
Yeah.
Huh. I like that.
Cinema Recall is available everywhere you find great podcasts. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram under Cinema Recall Podcast and on Twitter at cinema_recall.
Well, we're back, and our journey through 1983 is not exactly finished, although we seem to have covered quite a few movies. But we do have the issue of awards coming up, and the question that we have for this week was inspired by the films of 1983 and some of the questions that we might have had about those movies. What Academy Award winner from 1983 would you switch out if you could? Who would you replace as a winner? And I kind of switched it up a little bit myself. I switched out from a winner to a nominee. So I just think that there were, because I didn't disagree with most of the winners, but I did have a couple of people that I thought got left off the list that I thought should have been included. So Howard, let's start with you because I think I know where you're going with this.
Maybe, but this was actually one of the easiest exit questions I've ever had here. It took me no time to
come up with your answer.
To come up with it, to come up with the answer. This is one that should have won Best Picture, but wasn't nominated for Best Picture, but it got 5 other nominations where it won 3. It didn't win the screenplay or the director award, but did win costumes, cinematography, and the International Film or Foreign Film Award, and that is one of the greatest movies ever made in the history of cinema, and that is Fanny and Alexander by Ingmar Bergman.
The theatrical cut or the TV cut?
Well, this would have been the movie cut because that's what would have been entered. But I've seen the movie cut, like the TV cut, like 2 or 3 times, and then I've seen at this time I would have only seen the movie cut because that was what was released at the time, and that was what was nominated. It's just a wonderful semi-fantasy film about Fanny and Alexander, 2 kids whose parents are in the theater. His father is a great director, his mother is an actress, and then the father dies. And the mother makes the unfortunate choice to marry a prominent bishop who, let's say, is not the most fun person on the planet, and who becomes abusive towards Alexander because of his vivid imagination. It is just wonderful.
The only thing that I remember being discouraged from seeing this movie was that it was a long movie.
It is.
Every time I saw clips of it, I said that looks like it's going to be spectacular, and I like the idea of the story, but I've never pulled the trigger on it, probably because it just seemed, you know, it's a non-English film and it's a long non-English film. So I feel bad that I've ignored it all these years.
Yeah, I'm the
Well,
same.
there's two versions. There's the movie version and the TV version, and the TV version is like 6 hours long or something. It's in 5 parts or 6 parts, and yeah.
Yeah, it's a big blind spot for me as well. I think it's just been the length that's put me off. But one of these days, I guess watching the TV one in sections might be the easier way to go about it. But yeah, I do need to get around to this at some point.
Well, David, do you feel guilty about that? A blind spot for you? What's not a blind spot for you that you think should be corrected from 1983's Academy Awards?
Well, actually, mine is linked to one of the awards that Fanny and Alexander won. I mean, I'm not going to claim that my choice should win the award because, as I say, I haven't got around to Fanny and Alexander yet, and by all accounts, it's a beautiful looking film. But I was saddened to see that Stephen H. Burham, the DOP of Rumblefish, was not nominated for best cinematography because that is a beautiful looking film. So that should have at least had a nomination, but it did not. So yeah, I'd definitely say that would be up there. But I can't say it should win because I haven't seen Fanny and Alexander.
Well, I agree that it is beautifully shot, but sorry, no, it's no Fenn and Alexander. But it is a beautiful film.
I'm glad it came up. It was one of my alternates here. I mean, you also have The Outsiders the same year, and as a young person at the time, The Outsiders got a lot more talk, but I think Rumblefish is the far superior film.
Coppola was busy that year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jeez, well, Stephen H. Burham, I know he's collaborated with De Palma on some features, and I have not seen Rumblefish or The Outsiders. Gosh, all of the Best Picture nominees, the only one I've seen of these is The Big Chill. I've not seen Terms of Endearment or Tender Mercies or The Dressers or The Right Stuff. Haven't seen Fanny Alexander. Yeah.
The Dresser from the director of Krull, folks.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a better film that year. The Dresser is definitely the better film.
I'd say I've heard great things about The Dresser, but I had no idea it was him.
It's fine. It has two great performances in the lead, but I think it's just kind of a run-of-the-mill adaptation of a play.
Vern, since you are slightly unfamiliar with all of these films from 1983, your choice for what we'd switch out would be interesting to me.
Well, the only thing I would because at this time they did not really have like a best special effects award, and I'm not taking anything away from like Star Wars and who's the other there?
The Right
Yeah,
Stuff.
yeah, The Right Stuff. Definitely would give awards to them.
Krull.
But I really Krull first. But I really thought the special effects work in Videodrome at least should have been nominated because I thought, and I don't think they even had like the best makeup, but some of the makeup effects of having the slit in the chest and videotapes going into them, I would put Videodrome to have something in the special effects makeup category with that. I thought that was well done. And I was looking through the list of all the nominees, and I saw that Flashdance was up for best cinematography. And yeah, that would be my pick over Fanny and Alexandra. I'm sorry, Howard, but yeah, women in leotards. That always wins best cinematography for me. Sorry.
Backlit and being splashed on. I got
Exactly. Best cinematography of the year. Yeah.
Todd, it's your turn. What would you correct? What would you fix?
Well, I'll just throw out one little thing here first that I praise the Academy for. This ceremony, they presented an honorary Oscar to Hal Roach, which, as someone who grew up on the Little Rascals films, I was thrilled with that. I remember seeing that on the broadcast that year. But no, I would just go to the top prize, kind of reflecting some of the praise dished out earlier. But The Right Stuff to me gets the top Best Picture award there. It's just I think such a wonderful epic achievement that yeah, Terms of Endearment, come on, give me The Right Stuff.
Well, like I've said, I've seen The Right Stuff a dozen times, 3 or 4 times in a theater. I did see a presentation with Philip Kaufman right before I moved to Texas in Hollywood, and he did a talk about the film. So it's a terrific movie, and I agree that I would have chosen The Right Stuff over not Tender Mercies, but Terms of Endearment. Uh, However, Terms of Endearment is a really good film.
Oh yeah, nothing against Terms of Endearment. Yeah.
So as I was looking at the lists of all the nominees, I kept going, no, I understand why that happened. I would have preferred The Right Stuff, but I didn't go with that obvious one, although mine is related to The Right Stuff. So my suggestion is, I have nothing against Sam Shepard in The Right Stuff. I thought he was terrific. But I don't understand why Ed Harris was not nominated.
Yes.
He was fantastic in the part playing John Glenn. That little insert scene where he's on the game show doing Name That Tune was so much fun. And every time he got on the phone with his wife, I wanted to hug him. Heck, I might have voted for him. I might have voted for John Glenn based on the performance of Ed Harris.
I've always thought the casting of Ed Harris as John Glenn is one of the best examples of taking, someone that's a historical figure that was still in the public eye at the time and just doing brilliant casting. I mean, when I after seeing the movie saw the real John Glenn, I was like, "Oh my gosh. They nailed it. This is the guy." So
Well, I'm glad that you appreciate that suggestion also. Like I said, Sam Shepard was great, and Chuck Yeager's an iconic character, so I'm glad that they got some recognition there. But Harris was so fantastic in this part, and it just stuck out to me like a sore thumb that he didn't get a nomination.
I mean, the challenge with The Right Stuff is there are so many that you could have put into that Best Supporting Actor
Yeah,
category. I mean,
yeah.
Shepard is certainly worthy, but Harris, Glenn, Dennis Quaid, Fred Ward, all contenders in
Oh,
my mind.
let's all talk about Dennis Quaid and how great he is so that when Jay listens to this, he bitches about it because he can't stand Dennis Quaid. But I thought Dennis Quaid was terrific in his part as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's been our show, folks. I hope that you've enjoyed our visit back to 1983. I want to give our guests a chance to talk about things that they're working on and share with you. So, Vern, let's start with you. You got something that everybody should know about, something different from last week?
Yeah, well,
Sorry,
okay.
we're back to
The only thing I would say, do check out the other podcast I host over at Rabbit Hole Podcast called The Rotten Truth, where me and my friend Donnie looked at films that have gotten low scores on Rotten Tomatoes and decide if it's true or not. I know we're going to have some episodes come up here, probably the first part of February on the Adventures of Fort Fairlane. So look for that.
All right, thank you. David, how about you? You got something that people could look for?
Yeah, well, I've been busy after Christmas. I've been catching up on reviews. I've got a load up. I just recently posted one for King of Beggars, another martial arts movie, and then some non-martial arts. I've got a review of Captain Blood up recently, Cloud Charisma, and also The Dead. So yeah, I've been busy since taking a short break over Christmas.
All right, just a stream of consciousness comment. I actually had reference to Captain Blood last night. I went to dinner with some friends of ours, and the reason I was referring to it is because he has gout. And I just remembered that's how I learned what gout was from seeing Captain Blood.
He needs Dr. Blood to fix him up.
That's it. That's it. Howard, I know that we've got an upcoming episode of Pop Art. Do you have something else that you might want to have people look at?
No, not right now. Just that, yeah, the next one is going to be you and me, and we're going to be talking the Valentine's Day episode, which is Bronco Billy and Gun Crazy, two movies that start out with people joining a traveling show and end up with a robbery.
I love Bronco Billy.
Looking
It's
forward
such
to
a
it.
Good movie.
Looking forward to it. I haven't seen Gun Crazy yet. I bought it yesterday, so I'll be watching it and looking forward to joining you on that show. Todd, how about you?
Of course, we've got episodes of the Forgotten Filmcast hitting all the time. We just posted an episode the other day with Andy Golding where we talk about the 1957 film The Invisible Boy. It's the second big screen appearance of Robbie the Robot, and some folks consider it a backdoor sequel to Forbidden Planet. So.
Ooh.
When they got
it's
Robbie
not.
back to Earth, that kind of thing.
I like Forbidden Planet. I know I did make a sequel.
I mean,
Yeah, they didn't.
as we discussed on the podcast, calling it a sequel is a stretch, but
Okay.
they do link it to Forbidden Planet in this movie. So
It's an odd world that we live in, and people sometimes they got to take advantage of whatever marketing opportunities are there.
yeah.
From the from the guy who was the third executive producer from the guy who wrote a screenplay that was once inspired by this particular movie.
From the key drip, that was it.
That's it. That's it. That's the way you sell it. David knows how to sell something. He should be in charge of that. He's very enthusiastic about all of those martial arts movies. And on my side, just the usual stuff. I've been catching up this week with a lot of films that I've seen recently that I hadn't written about yet. There's a review up there of We Bury the Dead, which is it's a zombie film. It's a melodrama disguised as a zombie film. There are some zombie film elements to it, but not a lot. It really is about some other things. And Daisy Ridley is fine in that particular movie. I want to recommend a terrific movie called Dead Man's Wire with Bill Skarsgård, and I think it's getting a bigger release this weekend or next weekend. I can't quite remember. It got a small release this last weekend. We saw it in an advanced screening. It's a very good film based on a real life incident that took place in 1977, and the two lead actors in it are terrific. Because it's coming out in January, nobody's going to remember it next year when it's time for awards, but they should, because they are both really good in this movie. And then
Who's the director of that?
Gus Van Sant.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it was going to do much with it until it got a lot of good reviews. So I guess they may have rethought it and decided to give it another chance.
I hope so. I hope people see that. And then I did a video review of Anaconda because, I was inspired by Todd seeing Anaconda, and I said, I got to go out and see that. And it is completely stupid, but it's not worthless because I laughed quite a bit. So that's all I need from a comedy. If it makes me laugh, then I think I can recommend it to people. So there's my recommendation for all of you.
Nice.
I want to thank everybody for joining me this week. I appreciate Howard and Vern coming back a second week in a row. I know sometimes it's a kind of an onerous chore to have to do 2 back-to-back episodes of a show like this where we talk and yammer for ages. But I appreciate your making the time for us. And as usual, we'll be talking about lots of movies in the upcoming season. I don't think I have a new film on the schedule till the end of February. So everybody watch your email boxes for the upcoming list of films for March and April. You guys, thanks again, and we'll talk to you all soon.
You've been listening to the Lambcast. If you have an idea for a show or would like to join us on the Lambcast, contact us at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Find us on Facebook, just search for Lambcast, or on X, formerly Twitter, at Lambcast. And you can find us on YouTube as well. The Lamb site can be found at largeassmovieblogs.com. We'd also love it if you would leave a review on iTunes.
Ha 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 ha